You know, I like Danny Penny. I think a lot of people who watched Danny Penny and watched how stoic he was and how, in spite of whatever they threw at him and yelled at him and whatever happened in the courtroom, I watched him in the courtroom also, nothing changed his demeanor. He was just someone who would sit there and let everything fall off his back. But today, what I saw was one of the most amazing human beings I have ever met. And I think America will fall in love with this man. He is not just a hero. He is the kind of guy that every mother, every husband wants on the subway when their kid or their wife is on that train. He was compassionate. He was firm. He was someone who said it didn't matter what they threw at him because he kept going back in his mind to the thanks of those people who were on the subway car. And you heard him say it himself. He could never forgive himself if he didn't get involved. He said it really was who he was. He's a very Zen guy. He doesn't want this attention. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want any of that. I mean, this is the guy who was in a string symphony. I mean, he studied classical music. He's not a thug. He's the guy who talked about how the Manhattan DA weaponized his military experience against him. And that's what he was talking about with the politics. And I talked to him about the medical examiner who said one thing in the grand jury and then lied to make it look better at the trial. How did he feel about the fact that these people were coming in doing everything they could, not to mention the manslaughter where they dismiss it in order to send the jury back? He knew they wanted him. And he kept saying, I could never have changed it. I would not have done anything differently. And it reinforces my confidence. And I believe when America sees this man, their confidence in real men who believe in this country, who gave up 4 years of his life because of his belief in this country, who's going to stand up and take the slings and the arrows. And he was ready. He was ready to go to prison. Mm-hmm. He said, I couldn't let them kill. And he was 100% sure, let him kill. He was 100% sure Jordan Neely was going to kill someone. And he's been riding that subway since he was a kid. And he is someone who recognized, ironically, prescient, that Jordan Neely was on K2. He said to the police within minutes of this, he said he was on K2 or something. And I said, what did that mean? He said, they get incredible strength. Mm-hmm. He said, he bucked up and picked me up. Mm-hmm. He said, I swim every day. I'm a Marine. I'm strong. This guy was very strong. You got to watch this interview. He is a phenomenal human being. And you know what? I congratulate his mother and his father. God bless you for what you raised.
Well said. I got chills watching that interview.
Me too. I mean, I've been obsessed with this case from the beginning. And I pray that he gets to go on and have the life that he wants with no attention, if that's possible. I think you told me that he wants to be an architect.
Yeah.
I hope that he builds whatever he wants to build. And it's interesting that you use the word stoic. I listened to something yesterday, and it was an interview about a man who was just written about the Stoics. And he wrote a book called The Right Thing Right Now. So what I heard, what Daniel Penny is saying is that the principle was to do the right thing in the moment, regardless. And it is so important that we have people like this that are willing to do that. And I think about the people like Hawk Newsom, who was just suggesting there should be racist riots in the streets. And I do think that the most insulting thing you can be called is a racist. Mm-hmm. And again, he sat there and said, I'll take the court appearance over having to look myself in the mirror and know I could have done something and didn't do it. I'm sure you can relate, Joey, to all of that. I do hope that he's able to go on to have a great life with full support and whatever he wants, family, children, whatever it is, but to be able to move on from this. But I'm concerned about the civil suit, and I don't know how that plays into this.
Well, the father of Jordan Neely, of course, was on a list of the worst 50 mentally ill homeless people in a city of 8 million, has already sued Danny. Of course, the burden of proof is less. It's based upon the preponderance of the evidence. But he's got to go through another trial.
Wow.
Yeah, this is not over.
A real man of principle.
Yeah, you know, I've sat here and thought about this, especially watching him, and I've thought about this since it's happened. Would I be willing to do the same thing? Would I act the same way? Would I have that type of courage in that moment? You know, he was a Marine, so I feel like I know him. I feel like I went to war with guys just like him. And we have 3 tenets in the Marine Corps called honor, courage, and commitment. And courage, people think, is having the bravado. People confuse courage and bravery. A really stupid person can be brave for a moment, but a thoughtful person can be courageous. Because when you're courageous, you're putting yourself at risk. You're forgoing all of your tomorrows today so somebody else may have one. You're accepting the risk coming to you in order to do something that needs to be done, that is for the better good. I believe he acted with honor, courage, and commitment. I believe that he's stoic now. One of the criticisms is that he isn't showing remorse. When I watch that, I think he still believes that Jordan Neely was there to do harm and would have had he not. And that's part of the problem here is they've painted Jordan Neely as a victim beyond the person that was killed in this incident. They've painted him as a victim of the system and a victim of his affliction and a victim of all these things. Well, you know what? Evil and bad people, there's an origin story behind everybody. I hate that Jordan Neely's life turned out the way it did and ended the way it did. But in that moment, on that subway, he was evil, and Danny Penny was there to stop it. And one more point I want to make that I think is really important. The Marine Corps should be saying, this is our guy. This is who we train. This is why we train you that way. I didn't leave the Marine Corps with the United States government telling me you've lost your responsibility. They said you don't get to call yourself a former Marine. You have to call yourself a Marine for the rest of your life because honor, courage, and commitment, doing the right thing even when no one's looking, putting yourself in danger to save others, that is a responsibility you have for the rest of your life because now you know it. Now you've seen behind the curtain. Civilians, they're nasty. We don't have to believe that they can do it, but you are different. And I hope that when Pete Hegseth is the Secretary of Defense, he creates a Marine Corps culture that would stand up and say, that's our guy, that's what we told him to do, and we appreciate him for it.
We had not heard him talk at all, and we just watch him with his mouth closed and his eyes straight forward throughout this whole thing. How did it change your opinion when you heard him talk to the judge?
It didn't change my opinion. It buttressed what I thought of him already. I've had a high opinion of this young man since this happened. I think that people who are criticizing him and criticizing the verdict haven't paid much attention to the details of it, and they're going with an overarching narrative. Just because the system has failed in other instances doesn't mean that the system failed this time. And the fact that there are words like lynching being thrown around. I saw Jamal Bowman, who thankfully lost his primary over the summer to George Latimer, posted a, dear white people post on X. Oh. It is not the time for that. And you want the system to work this way. I'm sorry for the trauma that he endured, but he sat before a jury of his peers, a diverse jury. They heard him out. They were deadlocked on the manslaughter charge, and they were able to come to this agreement. And people were saying across the political spectrum when this case was being brought that Alvin Bragg had a duty to bring it because someone had tragically passed away. But
that's wrong. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, it just meant from the coverage that I consumed. And I would love to hear why that was wrong from you.
Yeah.
But I can't stand that he's in a conversation in anyone's mind with like a Derek Chauvin or someone who takes life ruthlessly like that. And there was an exchange during the trial where the question was, why do you think that people were in danger? Because he explicitly said it. Jordan Neely said, I'm here to kill people and I'll go to prison.
For the rest of my life,
right.
I'll go to prison.
And as a subway rider myself, twice a day, who has a lot of complaints about the experience on an almost daily basis, I know that there are a lot of people like me who have the same politics as me who are very happy to know that there are people like Daniel Penny who are riding those trains with us because it is very scary. And we all just reflexively, especially if you are weaker than someone who is having an episode, move to another car or move down the car out of the way. I took my kids in the subway for the first time since Cleo was born. She's 3 years old tomorrow.
Wow.
It is, yeah, well, I had to. No one helped me with the stroller, people. But
Daniel Penny would have helped with the stroller too.
yeah, Annie would have carried Teddy as well. But
There's one more thing I want to say, and you can watch this in the interview, and you really need to watch the full interview. I asked if he would do it again, having gone through what he went through. You got to watch it.
Yeah, wow.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.